coming in with regards to Chinese loan app scams that CNN News 18 has been following. And this is an exclusive news break. The Chinese loan apps were also victims of fraud, say the Bengaluru. We are also victims of fraud, say the Bengaluru co-working space provider. Under the scanner, the Bengaluru-based co-working space named BrickSpace, where at least 3 fraudulent companies had floated loan lending applications masterminded by Chinese nationals and preying on innocent Indian investors were registered, claim that they too are victims of these scammers. Speaking to News 18 in detail on how they are victims of the companies linked to the fraud Chinese loan apps that entraps thousands of Indians, they added that it is the government that should be putting a thorough physical verification and vetting process in place. Going across to my colleague Rohini Swami, who brings us this breaking news. Very good morning to you, Rohini. Now, absolutely ironic twist to this entire expose, the fact that this co-working space that has hosted many Chinese loan app companies have themselves fallen prey to them.
Good morning, Shilpa. Yes. Now, what they're trying to say is that a lot of companies had been using what is called virtual office spaces, especially during the COVID pandemic. And many companies would register. And they had talked to us about a very specific way of how it is going about this. And these companies, especially BrickSpace, which has been named and is under the scanner because of the 3 companies that have been exposed by News 18 who are linked with these fraudulent Chinese apps, they claim that it is the government who actually should be looking and probing into this more than them, because when a person wants to register a company, especially with a co-working space, they come with government documents like PAN card and Aadhaar card and other documents based on which an agreement is drawn with the co-working space to establish a company. So if an ex-company does that here and especially they are saying that it happened with them as well, they were approached by a third-party vendor or the channel partner, as they call, who actually give them the names of these 3 companies, and then they registered them based on the government documents. The question that they posed and they said was, we are becoming victims because how can we go and individually verify whether the PAN card or the Aadhaar card that has been submitted by the directors of that company are true or not? Because our verification process stops when we get our government data. But more importantly, this playing victim itself is not important, because a thorough vetting process is necessary, especially in this particular space. Co-working space is something that has become a norm in India or across the world as well. Several companies, and especially Bangalore, Karnataka, is the startup hub of the capital of the country, and with several startups using virtual offices. Now, let me explain to you, these are not physical offices, but virtual offices. And virtual offices are very simple. They are offices that use this particular company as a registered address, or the co-working space as a registered address for all communication. Now, the problem or the loophole that happened and the cause which they claim, that BrickSpace claims that they are victims, is that when they have used these registered addresses and these companies have either shut down or involved themselves in fraudulent activities or be part of other criminal activities, or even for that matter, even move to another location, they do not change the registered address. And the registered address that is being used by these companies in this co-working space was linked or rather registered with the registrar of companies. They say the registrar of companies by the government do not change these addresses even if the co-working spaces approach them. What they mean and what they say is it is the company that registered with the registrar of companies who need to change that, and they don't do that. So fraudulent companies are using these loopholes to register themselves with virtual co-working spaces and then going and then getting caught. And in the end of the day, it is the agencies, investigating agencies like the CBI, the ED, the income tax, who actually come to the registered address, which right now is the co-working space, and then they get raided when actually these companies don't exist. But the most important point and the breaking story in this, especially with us in News 18 today, is that after this expose that News 18 has brought about, 35 other companies were identified by BrickSpace within their system, and they claim that they have written to the registrar of companies and the government saying that these are the companies that have been misusing their space and their address illegally. When they mean misusing, they claim that the lease period has expired and still they continue to use the address. Now, playing victim by this, what they're trying to clear and what they're trying to say is that they do not have a hand in this entire nexus of Chinese loan apps or fraudulent apps that are being run by these companies. But the question is, should they be let off the hook, or should the government be much more tougher in their vetting process when it comes to the companies such as BigSpace?
Right. Thank you, Rohini, for highlighting that. And there clearly seems need of the hour, a central vetting system that needs to check these companies very thoroughly. Thank you very much for bringing us a breaking story. Moving on to Bengal.